Hello, it is March 27th, 2026, and today is the 38th day of Lent. Um, Today I got up and I think around 7:15. I woke up quite a bit before that, but then decided just to lay there, and it's my day-ish off, and it's not, I don't know, it's like my half day off. I like work on stuff, but it's more, I guess, personal things, and so I don't get up at a particular time. But then I got up and did my hour meditation, and then and then I recorded the next 5 episodes of Poets and Saints, and then I went to Pony Coffee, journaled, and then edited those episodes. One thing is, whenever I started editing them, there was like this low volume, kind of high frequency in the recording. And I'm wondering if it's in this recording. I just unplugged everything and plugged it back in. But that happened once before, and I had to redo all the episodes. But channel 1 on my Zoom H5 recorder, it was like introducing this like boop, 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 and there was nothing I could do to make it go away. And so I just switched to using channel 3. But then there was like this different kind of thing happening today. I'm hoping it's not in this recording. But that would be unfortunate if this thing is going bad, because I use it all the time, which means that I'm gonna have to buy a new one. Or I guess I have a Zoom H6. One thing I saw on the new one, I think it's still called the H6, but it's like the H6 and then another modifier. As apparently there's this like there's no volume control on the new one, and I was like, wait, how do you adjust? I mean, that's like such a big thing. Like, how do you adjust the levels on it? And apparently there's like this new way of recording audio that it just has so much information that it's like a raw photo, but for audio, where you don't have to do the levels. It will never peak. It just contains all the information. So that was interesting. Whenever I looked that up a while ago, interesting to know. And then I sat at Pony Coffee and worked on a few things that I didn't get done yesterday. I was like, yesterday I should have had a couple hours of meetings and ended up not having those, which I guess worked out because I was there until 4 working on stuff, and then still didn't get everything done and had to do some stuff today. So guess that all worked out. And then I sat there and read for a while, and I'm still working through my reread of The Universal Christ by Richard Rohr, and cannot recommend it enough. Just wow. This contains, I mean, yeah, if you want to know my theology and how I see God and see this thing that we call Christianity, and my feelings on religion within that, and my feelings, like, obviously I've been shaped by reading this, but really it's more so that reading this made me feel comforted, knowing that, someone else and then gives me more attuned and specific language for how I believe, because Richard Rohr is much further on the spiral upward and outward. And so I get to reach forward and grab his hand on the divine dance upward and outward. And one thing that I read today was I came across the actual quote and part about loving the rock and the great chain of being. And I think there was one of the early days of this series, I talked about this, but I'm just going to read it. Saint Bonaventure taught that to work up to loving God. I'm missing words here. Saint Bonaventure taught that to work up to loving God, start by loving the very humblest and simplest thing, and then move up from there. Quote, "Let us place our first step in the ascent at the bottom, presenting ourselves to the whole material world as a mirror, through which we may pass over to God, who is the supreme craftsman," he wrote. And further, quote, "The Creator's supreme power, wisdom, and benevolence shine forth through all created things," end quote. I encourage you to apply this spiritual insight quite literally. Don't start by trying to love God or even people. Love rocks and elements first. Move to trees, then animals, and then humans. Angels will soon seem like a real possibility, and God is then just a short leap away. It works. In fact, it might be the only way to love, because how you do anything is how you do everything. As John's first letter says quite directly, anyone who says he loves God and hates his brother or sister is a liar. In the end, you either love everything or there is reason to doubt that you love anything. This one love and one loveliness was described by many medieval theologians and others as the great chain of being. This message was that if you failed to recognize the presence in any one link of the chain, the whole sacred universe would fall apart. It really was all or nothing. And I love that so much. I find that to be just the truth. And in my spiritual awakening, whenever I was living in Portland, my heart created a tether with my mind for the first time. This is how I came to see love. And I experientially know this to be true, and is why it has completely shaped the way that I view the world and the way that I love, because I love the atom. I celebrate myself in every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Since the beginning, 13.8 billion years ago by our most recent measurements, in our current scientific knowledge, we know the speed of light. We know light is a constant, and we know how it travels, and because of that, we're able to measure. And because we're able to measure, we're able to see that at some point around 13.8 billion years ago, there wasn't light, and then there was. And that light started from nothing, from quantum fluctuation, from pre-atoms, and then there were. And those atoms combined and created into something new and unknown to the universe called molecules. And those molecules, over the course of billions of years, combined and created into something unknown and new to the universe called cells. And those cells combined and created into something new and unknown to the universe called you, me, and everything in between. The atoms made of quarks I love. The relationship, there's an energy, an intelligent knowing in between each of those atoms. That those atoms combine into and create literally everything. When we get to the cellular level, one cell divides into two, two into four, four into eight. And from a single cell, some of those cells start to say, I'm a toenail. Some of them say, I'm a brain. Some of them say, I'm a heart. Some of them say, I'm a spleen. And they start to move and congregate into what they were created to be in some sort of intelligent order. A blueprint, the DNA, the map of what it is to be was created, was written. And these atoms, molecules, cells follow an instruction manual. And that manual creates the dust, which creates the soil, which creates the grass, which creates the air, the oxygen, literally everything. And whenever I look at the rock, this rock that may have existed for a couple thousand years, a couple million years, and all that it has been destined to be. Maybe it once was a part of a great mountain and then fell into an avalanche and then melted and fell into a river flowing and then washed up thousands of miles away. And then that rock was ground into mortar or concrete aggregate and then poured as the foundation of a grand church that has been standing for 500 years. I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. Every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. And then we arrive at observing. All those atoms arranged in intelligent order until I have consciousness, a soul, a knowing, the ability to observe and know that I'm observing this blade of grass. And this blade of grass blankets the earth and feeds all living creatures. Indirectly or directly. And those creatures are nourished without fear of death. And so I have love for everything that the atom creates. Which points back to that which was before the atom in both senses of that word phonetically. Atom, Adam. The creator of the atom. That set forth life. That has a relationship with life. That is life itself. And yet existed before, and all things exist within. Just thinking about yesterday's journal and just trying to like speak through politics and how vastly different when it comes to God, the nature of God and all created things. I speak with a knowing and a confidence. When it comes to politics and all of the frivolous activity of political ideology and philosophy, I don't know. I know what I feel, but I don't know. When it comes to this, I know. There's a few other great parts that I read today. From the very beginning, faith, hope, and love are planted deep within our nature. Indeed, they are our very nature. The Christian life is simply a matter of becoming who we already are. But we have to awaken, allow, and advance this core identity by saying a conscious yes and drawing open it, and saying a conscious yes to it and drawing upon it as a reliable and absolute source. Again, image must become likeness, and even a good theology will have a hard time making up for bad anthropology. If the human person is a pile of manure, even the snow of Christ only covers it and does not undo it. But our saying yes to such implanted faith, hope, and love plays a crucial role in the divine equation. Human freedom matters. Mary's yes, Mother Mary, Mary's yes seemed to be essential to the event of incarnation. God does not come uninvited. God and grace cannot enter without an opening from our side, or we would be mere robots. God does not want robots, but lovers who freely choose to love in return for love. And toward that supreme end, God seems quite willing to wait, cajole, and entice. Love. That is so beautiful. Faith, hope, and love. And also, what was leading up to that is that in the most recent versions of Christianity, there has been this introduction of the fall and the first sin, and that we are garbage, fallen creatures, and we have to be redeemed by the death of Christ. But for first 1,000+ years of Christianity, this wasn't the case. And that we are saved by the life of Christ. The life of Christ shows us the way in which to be saved. We have moved into a new and less than story, that it is the death of Christ that saves us from this original sin, and that there may be some fruit of that theology, but that theology has been taken to a place where it's sin management, and it's a lesser than story than our identity of faith, hope, and love, a beloved child of God, ever pursued from the moment that we were even a twinkle in our father's eye. God knew us, loved us, and wanted us to choose. And the animals have no choice. The animals are. But we've been gifted with consciousness so that we are in relationship with love, as love is in relationship with itself, and we get to participate in the community of love ever presenting itself to itself. And in that choice, we find salvation, life, contentment. And what this brought to mind was there are people in my life. One of those examples is my father, who I would love for him to experience what I've experienced, to know what I know. And I have attempted to manufacture awe in his life. I've attempted to manufacture the presence of God in his life. And this just reminded me, I've already surrendered to the fact that I cannot manufacture it for him. That is by the grace of God that he will know. And until God wants him to know, he will not know. But what this added to that Mary's yes seemed to be essential to the event of incarnation. God does not come uninvited. God and grace cannot enter without an opening from our side, or we would be mere robots. My dad doesn't want it. He's not inviting it. And so for God to come, he would be coming uninvited. And that is a crucial thing to know. I do think there's a nuanced conversation in there that I'm thinking about. Paul is where I'm getting the hang up. That, Paul on the road to Emmaus, Christ just enters into his life and completely reshapes him. As I'm speaking this out loud, but different than this example of my dad, Paul had a relationship with God. He just had bad theology. So that it wasn't that he wasn't inviting God, he just was rejecting Christ. That's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down right now. The point of me talking is that I have come to know and to learn that as much as I would love to manufacture a divine encounter, a mystical union for somebody else, I know that I cannot do that. I can only live my life and live my life pointed towards Christ. And if God wants to use the gravitational orbit of my life to pull people closer to himself, then that will happen. And then in knowing that I believe that all things are possible, and that if Christ wants my dad to know, then he will know. But in his love, he most likely will never know unless he takes a step of trust in knowing. That's the faith element. And one thing he said in this chapter that I just read is that trust may be a better word than faith in our current postmodern cultural context because of how tainted the word faith is. And I'm big on language, and I also believe that using less triggering language to speak about these things is good and lovely, because God by any other name is still God, and and trust is a synonym for faith, and a synonym that is better understood and less triggering. And I know that for my dad, if he is to have an experience with the mystical union of Christ in his life, it will have to be because he's come to enough surrender and curiosity to take a small step of trust toward Christ opening the door. But Christ is not, he's always going to stand behind the door and knock, but he's never going to open it without your consent. And my dad is very much less than consenting. He has bolted the door and plugged his ears, and the door, there is no door to even open. The door doesn't exist, let alone the sound of the knocking at the door. And so, in God's infinite grace and love, he's going to continue to stand there, continue to pour out his love, and patiently wait and pursue, but never force or coerce. And in my case, in this specific case, grace me with knowing that it is not by my doing, and there's nothing that I can do. If my dad would have come to mystical union because I had created the environment and led him into a moment, that could have made me believe that I am capable of that, and that I could become guruistic and thinking that I can bring people into a higher state of consciousness, but I can't. Like I said, I just have to live with my life pointed towards Christ, loving. And if that love creates a gravitational pull that Christ wants to use to draw more people to himself, yes and amen. That is all there is. Also, see what happens and what thoughts happen whenever I read. I mean, I know there has to be processing time and all that, but it's like, and I'm not capable of comprehending and reading every day, but it's like the things that I think about and speak about on days that I read are much deeper. See you tomorrow.